So, I mean, we've had this conversation actually numerous times over the last months, but of course, the pandemic has brought a lot of this to the head, right?
Mhm.
And one of the things that has been first and foremost on my mind when I'm speaking with clients and prospects and just entrepreneurs here in the ecosystem is what can individuals do right now, right,
Mhm.
to deal with what's transpiring. It's easy to put your head in the sand and kind of hope it goes away, kind of hold on tight. But we know that's not really an effective approach. It's not really even an option for you as an entrepreneur. And
Mhm.
now's the time where we really need to be exercising leadership. Um, so, you know, I guess that's where we could begin and start is, what are some of the things that entrepreneurs can do? And top of my mind when I think about it is, look, number one, what are they telling you that they need ultimately? Now's not the time, once again, to dig your head in the sand, but it's actually now a time for engagement, right?
Yeah.
Number one, your clients in particular, they need to know that you're still functioning. They need to know that you're still accessible. They need to know that you're still servicing them, right? That's so absolutely important. The last thing you want any of your clients to be walking around or sitting in their homes in front of their computers thinking is that if I need assistance with A, B, C, and D, you may not be available. That's like the kiss of death, right?
Mhm.
That's a sure way to make sure that even once the pandemic subsides, that you have lost that person as a client, right? They're going to go looking elsewhere next time they need services and next time they need assistance because what's going to be first and foremost top of mind is that you went ghost,
Right.
right? At a time where they need some normalcy, they need some individuals who have been helping to guide them or providing resources or support to be there. You kind of abandoned them, right? So that's one thing. The other thing is this: as entrepreneurs, one of the most important skill sets that we all have to adopt is ability to pivot, right? The ability to survey the landscape and anticipate changes and anticipate needs, anticipate challenges that are occurring. That's what makes us entrepreneurs. We see things first. So your ability to, once again, engage your current clients, right? Your ability to talk to them, to have conversations with them, to kind of anticipate what their needs are based on the feedback or even your own observations is just going to be absolutely critical because here's the thing. Even once the pandemic subsides, these conditions that are currently transpiring are going to continue, right? It's not going to resolve itself overnight.
Right.
And so you need to be aware of that, right? You may need to even self-evaluate the services you're offering and pivot in the sense that you might have to offer different services. You have to meet their needs in a different way. This goes beyond just, utilizing virtual media like Zoom and Facebook and LinkedIn and be more active on social media. I'm talking about everyday needs in terms of how do you market moving forward? How do you engage clients moving forward? How do you deliver your services, right? If your service delivery requires offline, um, you have to take all these different things into account. And so these are some of the things that I reflected on and in conversations with business owners. I wanted to make sure were top of mind for any entrepreneur that's listening to this. You know, the other thing that's very important is people's habits. Once again, are going to change,
Mhm.
and their buying habits and what they prioritize is going to change as well, right? If there's not one thing that every entrepreneur should have learned over the last 5 years, but definitely now, is that you just can't afford not to have a social media marketing presence.
Right.
Right? It's just, it's once again, it's one of those things where I hate to use the terminology or the dictionary, a kiss of death, but it is to your business. People are now going to go online first because we've been conditioned to do so. Before we'd set an appointment with someone if we met them at a social event or if we happen to see them on Facebook or LinkedIn, we had interaction, pick up the phone, make the phone call, take a 20, 30-minute commute, sit down with the person to get to know them, right, and fill each other out. Where now people are doing deep dives into each other's social media content because that's the only way we can really familiarize ourselves with each other.
Right.
And I don't believe that's a habit that's going to subside. Matter of fact, I think it's only going to intensify as people are sitting home and getting accustomed to that. And they're going to pick up the skill sets while they're doing it to decipher those who are real and those who aren't, those who are genuine, those who aren't, those who actually have a real value prop, and those who are out here just, I don't know, either trying to take advantage of the situation or really not being responsive to the needs of their clients. these things are going to become so absolutely important. Remember, not everyone's sitting on their money. Money does not disappear, it just changes hands, right? And so for those individuals who are being responsive to meet the needs of their clients, you're still busy. You're still setting appointments. You're still active online. People are still engaging you. You still have a way to serve individuals and, quite frankly, be profitable and generate revenues. So those are my initial thoughts, Rachelle.
Yeah, well, I agree with that, especially speaking to the point of you can't ignore your presence on social media at all, because reality is even if you are making these appointments and you're gonna, let's say after the fact, like we are able to meet in person, whatever, right? It is ignorant to think that this person, before they meet with you, has not done their own research, in the sense of they haven't attempted to look up your LinkedIn profile. They haven't figured out where you are on Facebook. Maybe you're on Instagram. Do you have a website? They have Googled you. You need to assume 100% of the time, every time, someone has Googled you before they meet with you, because for the simple reason that they can. And they are already making first impression assumptions before they've even really gotten to know you yet. And now your job is going to be, are you controlling the narrative of your online space and meeting that first assumption that is a good thing? Or are you going to now have to combat whatever they found or didn't find? To be honest, if they're not finding anything, that's almost worse, right? That's almost worse, because now they're like, well, why am I not finding anything on this person? I should be able to find something, right? And while you might think that makes you, it's a security thing or it keeps you safe or whatever, you're just creating biases and assumptions that you don't even want in there. So this kind of leads into, especially if you have let's say you've set up profiles or whatever, but you're not actively using them. That's another problem, because then people think you were doing things and now you're not doing anything, right? But that may not be true either, right? So this leads into why it's so important that you can't disappear. This doesn't mean you need to be on these platforms or whatever every single day, right? Or every hour of the day or this, but the reality is right now, everybody's screen time on Sundays is saying, oh, your screen time's up 30% this week. Congratulations, you have not left your phone. If the reality is that people are staring at their phones and staring at their computer, give them something worthwhile to look at, right? Yes. Continue to market yourself. You need to, especially in this time, if you're, like you were saying before, if you're in a position where you need to pivot, where you actually need to reevaluate what it is that you sell and what it is that you do, that idea and whatnot may not come overnight. But what can happen now is, at the very least, establishing yourself as a credible source. Show people that you are a leader in what you know, you are an expert in what you know, and build that trust right now. Because when it comes time for them to put their money down, right, and be able to actually spend again, you want to be at the front of their mind, right? So it's super, super important that you don't disappear, right? But that what you're doing online is mindful right now. Because I will say too, to that point, especially in the past few weeks, there's content creation overload happening. Everyone is like, let me create everything, right? And we're all getting a little bit drained from too much content, and ourselves being on our phones and whatever, too much content. So it's not about being the expert of everything. It's being the expert of what you know and being very clear and concise with that, right? It helps you stay top of mind for your people. But also it's when as soon as someone is ready to make that action with you or action with somebody, they're going to pick you. The other thing is that if you have this time right now, right, that you didn't have before, and maybe that was a reason why, you weren't updating, you weren't showing up on social media, you weren't showing up online, and you were like, I'm just too busy. Everyone's workload has adjusted. You may still be busy, but I promise we're all busy in a different way right now. So
Mhm.
now is the time to instill that habit. What is going to be my consistent way of showing up online? What is it going to be? Put that habit into practice now. Batch things out ahead of time. Figure out what you're going to talk about so that on those days when you're not inspired or motivated and you don't really care about social media, you're still showing up, right? That's what's so yeah, it's so important. So creating a content calendar, just figuring out what are a few topics that you can go more in depth each week on, right? Or something that you can speak to, right? We don't have to overthink it. Again, so important to kind of remember that you don't need to talk about everything. You need to just talk about what you know, right? Because like there's a lot of people talking about everything right now. We don't need that. We need leaders in our specific space. We need leaders in our specific thing, because that is why we're on social media, right? When our screen times are up, we're looking for stability. We're looking for leadership. We're looking for something to ease the anxiety of what's happening right now. And I don't believe even after we're all stuck in our home, that anxiety ain't gonna go away, right? Not for a while. Like we're gonna be still on high alert of what do I turn to, who do I turn to help me navigate this new terrain in that way.
Yeah, I concur with you 100%. You know, as I was getting before, I really believe there are certain behaviors that are going to crystallize during this period of time. And this period is going to really change the way people conduct business. You know, there's something that I hear you say time and time again, it's always front of mind when I'm thinking about even the content I'm sharing. You talk a lot about how you show up, right? And it's going to be so important that individuals don't fall into the trap of what I call doing the money grab, right? Because people are going to be able to see if you just started up some type of product or just started posting because you see this as an opportunity to earn a quick buck, right? You got to show up with a solutions oriented mindset. You have to show up genuinely looking to solve people's problems. You know, people, a lot of times in the industry that I work in, of course, and a lot of what I do is in the direct selling industry, there's a saying that people don't care what you know until they know how much you care, right? Um, People aren't spending enough time really talking about their why, right? Sharing exactly why they're passionate about that product or service, why they're passionate about the message or the solutions that they're offering. And I think that's so absolutely important. That is part of your branding. People understanding what motivates you, what makes you tick. And you know, you can't fake that. You can't put your life's energies behind a compromise. If you're really not passionate about something, if you're really not interested in helping people in that way, it's going to shine through time and time again.
Yeah.
You know, an example that I would use, and I don't do it frequently, but I think I do it enough, particularly on LinkedIn where I live most of the time. But even on Instagram and Facebook, I'll let people know, look, the reason why I do what it is that I do is because I'm passionate about entrepreneurship. I think it's empowerment. I think it's one of the most effective ways to take control over your life, to take agency of what happens at your kitchen table. If you're tired of last hire and the first fire, you don't want to be in the job market, you've had bad experiences, entrepreneurship is an answer, right? If you are concerned about what's transpiring in your community, well, you know what? There's two ways to vote. One way to vote is you can turn around and vote at the ballot, which is extremely important. But you can also do something like cut a check and pay for the politicians that you feel like you deserve, right? That's something that I stream throughout my content periodically. What I'd encourage people to do is find your why, find your reason, find your motivation, and find a way to include that, right, in your mix, if you will, so people can understand that, no, you're genuine, you're passionate. You just didn't watch some YouTube video or read some book, and now you're an entrepreneur, now you're offering solutions. No, this is something you've thought critically about, and it's in your DNA. You know, people don't pay 5-star prices for mediocre White Castle burgers, right? They just don't do it. So you need to double down on the things that give you energy and give you strength that you're actually genuinely interested in.
Yeah. It's like I was saying too, like that goes exactly with, there's tons of content, there's tons of stuff being created right now, right? Free stuff, this person, that person. And if you're spending tons of time online and ingesting all of what this person's doing, that person's doing, that, and you're going to start muddling your why a little bit and thinking it's easy to get into the comparison trap. It's easy to get panicked and feel like, oh, they're doing this, so I have to start doing that, right? But yeah, coming back to your why, thinking critically about that why. If you need to shift the action of what happens to execute that why, of course, that's going to happen all the time. But it's sort of like putting your blinders on, right? You're going to have to consume less content to understand how to get to that point, and stop comparing yourself to what others are doing and staying focused on how are you going to serve your people, right? I guess that also brings me to this kind of other point of, you don't need to be the solution for everybody, right? And if you have clients and if you have an existing base, even if that's 5 people, you need to figure out how to service those 5 people right now, right? And for the future, because if you can show up, do that well, those 5 people are going to be your biggest fans, and they're going to catapult you to the next 5 and next 50, next 100, because everyone's actions right now, they're being taken very critically, right? So if you choose to do nothing, that's way more of a message you're sending than 3 weeks ago if you chose to do nothing, right? So when you step up and choose to do something right now, it feels so much more personal for everybody, and they appreciate it more in a different way for anyone who's struggling. So yeah, you just need to service your people, right? Figure out who your humans are, and these are your people, right? And it doesn't need to be everybody.
Right. It's about sending out the signal to your tribe. You know, what's that colloquialism that everyone uses? Be yourself, everyone else is already taken. And once again, you know, I just go back to, I really think people take for granted that we've been through that period in social media where people wanted to see these caricatures, where they wanted to see these individuals with this phenomenal veneer, perfect people. We've gotten past that, right? People have finally caught on to the fact that that's not real. So folks really want you to show up genuine and be about the stuff that you're about, right? Go hard on you, do you, attract your tribe. You can't go out and duplicate other people's stuff and expect to have their success, because they're coming from a different place. They have a different experience, they have a different background. The things resonate differently with them. I mean, if you can't get excited about your own stuff, if you can't get excited about your deal, it's a false expectation that you are going to expect anyone else to get excited about what you're doing.
Right.
And so that's why I keep going back to this over and over and over again. You know, part of being able to be successful in business is being able to influence people. And in order to influence people, you have to have passion. You have to have enthusiasm. People need to know that it's real. Because on the flip side of it, right, you know, not to talk about, I don't want to give too much thought to it, but, you know, you have a lot of people who are just the opposite out there, right? Once again, they're just trying to take advantage of an opportunity. They're trying to sell a product or a wear or whatever the case may be. I've seen some crazy stuff out there. And, you know, you may enjoy a windfall in the short term, right? In the short term, you may earn a couple dollars, you may take on a couple clients, but I'll tell you, long term, you're going to pay the price, right? If you're on some fad stuff, in other words, you're on the product or service of the month or the moment, you're going to catch an L. You're going to come up short, because you're not going to build tribe. You're not really going to build a following. Those relationships are just going to be transactional, right? They're really not going to see you as a problem solver or really as a solution long term. And people do business with folks whom they like, know, and trust. And you know what? More importantly, they share content. They share referrals. They tell other people about folks whom they like, know, and trust. And so, you know, once again, I think that's one of the most valuable lessons I've learned, Rachelle, just to listen to you, is the idea of always being cognizant of how you're showing up.
Yeah. Yeah. And that couldn't be more true now than ever, you know, authenticity and being true to what you have to say and not trying to, it's not to say that you need to go on social media or online or wherever your messaging is and be so vigilant about what you say that you're always pissing people off with your opinions, right? That's just not, you're gonna potentially sometimes piss people off, and that's what it is, but that's not like, you don't need to be so, insane about it all the time. And I see people do that too, who try and get like double down on like their anti-energy in that way. I'm just like, no, I'm just not going to agree with anyone, so it can go either way. It's just, this kind of leads into the next point too, of like, this takes a lot of self-reflection. This takes a lot of you thinking, we already talked about thinking of the why of your business.
Hi, phenomenal.
Yeah. Life.
Hey, it is what it is. When I talk about authenticity.
Right, exactly. So we're talking about the why of like our business and why if we do things, but you need to also reflect on the why of you, like how can you, if some of this feels, that's the hardest part, is to work on yourself, right? And to understand who you are and who you're going to be moving forward as well. They go hand in hand. If you're an entrepreneur, your business is personal. This is what it is. Like you have to have the balance between what it is that you do and who it is that you are. Like they just have to mesh,
I concur 100%. That whole self-evaluation piece, that whole reflection, that whole ideal of looking yourself in the mirror and asking yourself whether or not your values, your work, and even how you go about your work are aligned, right?
Mm-hmm.
Matters so much, and when you talk about personal development and growth, I drafted a post earlier today, and I guess I would reflect on it even now. And there's a couple questions that I would encourage and challenge individuals to answer for themselves during this period, right? Especially if you're an entrepreneur. And that's number one. Look, you have a little extra time on your side if you're doing a little bit of self-care, right, during this period of time. And one of the questions you should ask yourself, really, what habits have I exercised, or what habits have I had that I've been exhibiting over the last 6 months, the last 2 years, that quite frankly might not be serving you anymore? Mm-hmm. Now's a good time to take time to evaluate that, right? And what habits do you need to install to help you be more effective and more relevant and more able to solve people's problems 1 year, 3 years, 5, 10 years from now? Now's a good time to ask that question of yourself. Mm-hmm. Once again, whether you're an entrepreneur in this case, or whether you're in a situation where you're going to need to find employment, or you're going to need to pivot, one of the questions you should be asking yourself is, look, where can I acquire a skill or learn a skill to increase my value proposition, right? So I'll be more attractive to the marketplace. Mm-hmm. The other question, and I hate to beat it, no, I don't actually, I'm going to continue to do it. Ask yourself, what are you passionate about? What do you enjoy thinking about, talking about? What gets you excited? What gives you energy? Because here's the thing. As an entrepreneur, oftentimes winning and losing doesn't have to do with how great, how wonderful you are and your tactics and strategies and this, that, and other. Sometimes it's just your willingness to stay in the game. Yeah. Sometimes it's a war of attrition, right? And you have to be willing to go further, go longer, go farther, longer than the other individuals, so you'll end up in a winner's circle. So ask yourself, what is the thing that gives you energy, right? So even when you're fatigued and tired and you don't feel like it, you still show up the way you're supposed to. And then, look, entrepreneurs are going to have to make some tough choices, right? Because there are some business models, there are some approaches that individuals have been using. There are some products and services that, quite frankly, might be obsoleted by this period of time as well. And you're going to have to ask yourself a question of, look, how can I solve bigger problems? What do I need to do to be more relevant than I was before, right? And once again, to be redundant, but I think it's necessary, the question you should be asking yourself is, how's your approach going to solve bigger problems, right? How is it going to make people's lives easier during this pandemic and then thereafter? Because that's going to determine the winners and losers, right? It's going to end, and some of us are going to show up brand new, right? And what do I mean by that? New skills, new thought processes, new approaches, new habits. We didn't put our head in the sand, so we stayed present. We became recognized as an SME or an expert, or at least someone that people can go to when they need some positivity, more effective, actionable content, things they can apply in their lives to solve their problems. And then some individuals are just going to get left in the dust.
Yeah, and it's easy right now when you're in the thick of it, when everyone's in the thick of it, we're in the middle of it, to listen to things like this, to hear things like this, and not realize quite yet that if you don't start taking action now, and if you don't start implementing some things now, it's easy to forget that someone else is doing that right now. Like, I was reading about between 2008 and 2010, that's when Uber started, Airbnb started, Venmo, Slack, like all these things that are like WhatsApp, the WhatsApp chat, all these things that are like huge parts of our lives now. Those were people who hunkered down the last time that shit got real, like, to be honest. So, like, if you're not saying you got to come up with the next Uber or whatever, that's not the point. Is that there are people who are taking this time to get very intense about what it is they want to do and who they want to serve. So it's easy to be like, sit here and listen to these things and then just go about your day. But this is that time. This is that time when someone else is doing it, right? I'd hate for someone to be like, man, I had that idea and I just, didn't do it, didn't take advantage of it. Someone else beat me to the punch, So,
there was a gentleman who was indirectly a mentor of mine and a trainer whom I really respected. And he used to say this all the time. He used to say, if you show up to a meeting or a seminar, or if you watch a video or some type of training, motivation, et cetera, you show up there and you sit in the audience, but after it's concluded, you don't take action. It really wasn't a training.
Right.
It really wasn't. You just got amped, you got motivated for a moment, but at the end of the day, it's going to end up just being BS.com, right? I don't know the other way to say it. Motivation is temporary. You got to get inspired, right? And inspiration comes inside, believing in the things that you're doing, believing that you're making an impact, getting that positive response from the community, basically saying, look, yeah, we feel you. We understand where you're coming from. This is valuable. You just can't. I know so many individuals are doing this right now too. I've had too many conversations where individuals are spending all day long watching YouTube videos, listening to other people go in on all these different things they need to be doing, and then you ask them, okay, so what steps did you take? What changes are you going to make? How are you going to challenge yourself? How are you going to execute? Right? That's so absolutely imperative, and I hope as we wrap up here, that's the one thing that individuals take from this talk that we're having, that please, please, please take action. You don't need to get 50% better today. You don't need to get 100% better today. You don't need to get 20% better a day. If you get 1% better every single day moving forward, I mean, if you take little baby steps to get better based on whatever content you're consuming right now, at the end of 30 days, you're 30% better. At the end of 90 days, you get the point, right? You're 90% better. Just take small incremental steps to level up and step up your game. And once again, this period doesn't have to be a period of complete delusion and anxiety and stress, and doesn't have to be a period where progress isn't being made. You can move the ball forward during this period of time.
Right. Yeah. And that's all where it starts. It just to kind of summarize, if you've listened to the whole thing and now you're like, okay, but what was I supposed to do again? You need to check in with your people first. Check in with your people first and see what's happening. What are they saying? What are they doing? What do they need? The next thing you do is you check in with yourself of, okay, so how do I service that? How do I meet that? What do I need to do that? And if that also involves getting your mindset right and getting yourself right to do that, then that these are big things. These are big things that have to move forward, but they are necessary things that have to happen right now. Absolutely.
And of course, working on yourself,
Right.
right?
Yep.
That personal and professional development. Um, you just don't want a situation where 30 days go by on a calendar. You've been looking at each day, but there hasn't been any development or growth from your part. And to take your cue, and I'll end here, Rachelle. Personally, once again, you're going to have individuals who are taking full advantage of everything that's transpiring, right? At some point, we're going to emerge, right? We're going to blossom out the ground like flowers. And you're going to see some individuals who are sprinting. They're already 100 miles per hour and running. And you're just now tying up your shoes. And so if you're not motivated by the opportunities that are there, then hey, let's just be real. Sometimes you got to be motivated by the possibility of loss, right? What you're going to potentially lose out on. So, I appreciate that feedback as always, Rachelle. Yeah, I mean, it's always incredible having these conversations with you. You are a jewel.
Appreciate that. I love these as well. It always reinvigorates me and gets me in that right mindset to move forward with what I need to do as well.
Yes, indeed. So I know you're not sitting around twiddling your thumbs, neither am I. My phone's going off in the background, and the Bufordlings, the Buford natives are getting restless too. So I can only keep behind closed doors for so long. So yeah, I definitely look forward to the next time. And look, everyone, look, you owe it to yourself. Crush it, get it in, and till next time.